On a flat stretch of rural Montana, Sheriff Paul Montoya was parked on the roadside at dawn, eating his Tuesday breakfast sandwich with coffee so strong it could strip paint. It was a habit he kept without question, the same place, the same hour, only the filling changing from week to week, as if routine itself was the only thing holding the world together. Then the sky split with white light. It was not lightning. There was no thunder, no tremor, no rush of wind. A silent beam descended at a precise angle, slowing in a way no machine should ever manage, until it hung above the eastern fields and then dropped behind the trees as though the heavens had simply closed the door. Paul sat frozen behind his cruiser, sandwich in hand, staring at the empty sky where nothing should have been. After 30 seconds of disbelief, he put the sandwich aside, called it in, and drove towards the Miller farm. The gate was open, which it should not have been. He followed the dirt track through the wheat and found the source. A pale, oval object the size of a large house, flattened like an egg and glowing softly from within. The wheat around it lay pressed in a perfect circle. No marks, no smoke, no sound, just impossible stillness. Paul rested a hand on his holstered gun and waited. Then he called his deputy, Rick, a half-awake Texan with a talent for surviving things he did not understand. When Rick arrived, jacket half on and granola bars already in his hand, he stared across the field and forgot how to finish his own sentences. They watched it. Then a line appeared down the side, top to bottom, warm gold at the edges. The object opened inward, slow and careful, like it had manners. Paul walked towards it the way one approaches a skittish animal, calm and steady, stopping at a safe distance. From the light stepped a figure 7 feet tall, pale gray, thin-limbed, with dark eyes like still water and a face without any features Paul could name. It stood in the wheat and looked at him, not threatening, not curious in any human sense, simply present. Paul did the only thing he could think of. He took off his hat and gave one slow nod. The visitor lifted a hand in reply, palm open. Rick, already on the phone with state police, watched the sheriff and the impossible thing mirror each other in the field and muttered, "Well, I'll be damned." Paul sat down in the dirt at a respectful distance. The visitor sat too, as if learning by sight rather than speech. For a while they did nothing but share the morning, the wheat, and the growing noise of radios trying to catch up with reality. Paul pointed at the crop and said, quietly, that it was wheat. He added that people made bread from it, though he suspected the visitor did not yet know what bread was. The creature's skin shimmered gently, pale as moonlight across water, and Paul realized it might have been answering him in the only language it had. Soon dust rose on the road. Then came the convoy, the helicopters, the state vehicles, and Commander Dale Reeves stepping carefully through the wheat as if entering a church. He was briefed on the way in, but the one detail that stopped him cold was not the ship, or the lights, or the fact that a sheriff had been sitting with a being from somewhere else for nearly an hour. It was that the visitor had taken off its hat first. Paul is sitting on the ground now, legs crossed, about 80 feet back from the visitor, far enough to give it space, close enough to stay in whatever this is turning into. The visitor sat down too, same way Paul was sitting, like it just picked that up from watching him, not making a big deal out of it, just getting comfortable. They're not talking. There is no way to yet. They're just sitting near each other, getting used to the fact that the other one is real. Paul thinks this might be the most important thing he has ever done in his entire life, and mostly what it involves is sitting in the dirt saying nothing. His radio has been going for 20 minutes now. State police, then other channels, voices getting louder and more urgent. The world is starting to catch up to what is happening in this field. Paul turns the volume down. The visitor looks at the sky, then back at Paul, then at the wheat around them. It reaches out and touches one of the wheat stalks with 2 fingers, very soft, and holds it for a second, looking at it the way you look at something you have never seen before but find interesting. and it sets it down and looks back at Paul. Paul says quiet, not really expecting anything back. Yeah, that is wheat. We make bread out of it. You probably do not know what bread is. Something happens on the visitor's skin, a soft pale shimmer, moving across it slow and gentle, like when the wind moves across the surface of a lake. There, and then gone. Paul watches that happen. He says, "Was it you answering me?" No way to know for sure, but it was looking straight at him when it happened. Paul can see the dust cloud on the road now. A long line of it. A lot of vehicles coming and coming fast. He looks at the visitor. He looks at the dust cloud. He looks back. He says, "More people are coming. A lot of them. And some of them are going to be scared." He touches his chest with one hand. "I'm not," he says. "Not anymore." The visitor looks at him. That soft shimmer again, wider this time, moving slowly across its shoulders and all the way down both arms. Paul nods once. The dust cloud gets closer. He stays right where he is sitting. Commander Dale Reeves is in the front vehicle reading through a report when his driver tells him they are 4 minutes out. Dale asks what they know about the man in the field. The driver says local sheriff, Paul Montoya, 22 years on the job, nothing unusual about him. Dale asks if he has moved back away from the object. The driver says no sir, still in the field. Dale looks up from the paper. He says, "Sitting in the field with it." The driver says, "Yes sir." Dale says, "Alone?" The driver says, "Yes sir." And then he says, "The deputy told us the sheriff said it took its hat off first." Dale looks over at the driver. He says it took its hat off? The driver says, "That is what the deputy told us, sir." Dale looks back out the front window at the flat land ahead, at the wheat field coming up on the right side of the road. Something that has never been to Earth before, meeting a human being for the very first time, and the first thing it did was take off its hat. Dale says quietly, "All right then." The convoy spreads out in a wide line along the edge of the field. Soldiers move fast, getting into position. A helicopter comes in low and loud overhead. The quiet Tuesday morning that Paul has been sitting inside for the last hour fills up all at once with engines, boots, and radio voices. The visitor watches all of it. The color of its skin shifts. The pale gray goes a little cooler, a little more careful. Not angry, just paying close attention. The way any person would if they sat down to have a quiet conversation and suddenly 100 people showed up. Paul says under his breath, "It is okay. They're just scared." Dale walks through the wheat toward Paul. He comes alone. No one with him. No weapon out. Paul notices that. He makes a note of it. That is a man worth talking to. Dale stops just behind Paul and says his name. Paul says, "Commander," without turning around. Dale says he has been out here 40 minutes. Paul says, "Yep." Dale asks him what happened. Paul tells him, "Saw the light come down. Came to look. It came out about an hour ago." Dale says, "And you just stayed?" Paul says it did not give him a reason to leave. Dale looks past Paul at the visitor. The visitor looks back at Dale. The color on its skin goes a little cooler when their eyes meet. Careful. Watching. Dale asks why it is looking at him like that. Paul says it does that with everyone new. It looks at you for a minute and figures out what kind of person you are. Dale asks, and Paul tells him not to make any fast moves, and if he can, to relax. He says, "It knows when you're tense." Dale slowly rolls his shoulders down, lets his arms hang loose at his sides. It is a small thing, but the color on the visitor warms up when he does it. Not a lot, just enough. Dale says, "Huh?" Something in the way he says it is different from how he sounded 30 seconds ago. Paul says, "Yeah." They stood there together for a moment. The helicopter moves off. The field goes quiet again. 80 feet away, the visitor is watching a bird that just flew across the sky above them. And then it looks back at Paul and Dale like it is checking to see if they saw it too. Dale asks what they do now. Paul looks at the visitor. The visitor looks back. Paul asks if they have someone coming who can actually talk to it. Dale says they are working on that. Paul says, then until she gets here, we do what I have been doing. Dale asks what that is. Paul says we stay. We do not crowd it. We let it know we are not going anywhere and we're not going to do anything to scare it. And we wait. Dale looks at the ship sitting there soft and quiet in the wheat. He looks at the visitor who came from the other side of the sky and is now watching two men talk like it has got all the time in the world. Dale asks if Paul thinks it is patient. Paul looks at it for a moment before he answers. He says, I think it came 4 light years to get here. Then he says, yeah, I think it is patient. Thanks for watching a video from Pulse Clips. Please hit that subscribe button. If you want to see part 2, don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Disclaimer: the images used in this video do not accurately describe the scenes perfectly. We are aware of that, and will keep on improving on future episodes.